so at BMore, we opened in April 2009. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary. Since we opened, we've served over 330 members of our community, all of whom are still members of BMore, but many of whom have moved on to better things. So currently we have about 120 active members, meaning 120 different people have come in the last 3 months to the Clubhouse and used our services, participated in our program. And then each day there's about 25 members coming in, and like I said, we have 4 staff. The staff don't necessarily have a mental illness. They don't have to be a staff person there. Like On Our Own, I think, if you guys have heard of that program, everyone involved in that program, paid staff or not, has a mental illness. But then we're also open for, we're all about work during the day, but we're also about fun. We are open late on Thursdays for social gatherings, karaoke, pizza night, movie night, etc. And then every federal holiday, so this includes Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, 4th of July, so on and so forth. We're open on that day so that if people don't have anywhere to celebrate, they come to the Clubhouse. And actually, I've come to love celebrating Thanksgiving at the Clubhouse, especially. It's very fun. Usually
I don't think it can be minimized enough how important that last part was. Go back one second. Is that here you have a nonprofit with a core staff of 4 people, and yet a staff person or persons are willing to sacrifice their time to provide an openness on a holiday so people don't isolate on these holidays and can share camaraderie and fellowship and still act in the work center day. It's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think isolation is the #1 problem with mental illness, because like I think I mentioned earlier, it just snowballs. When somebody becomes isolated, if they're depressed, a lot of bad things happen. So Clubhouse, the #1 thing we probably do is to help keep people from becoming isolated, which helps keep them out of hospital, which helps, makes them more likely to return to work and many other things.
Relapse prevention.
Relapse prevention.
Jason, you offer
this is
psychiatric.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
This is an impossible question to answer, but I'm gonna
okay.
That's not.
Yeah.
Not by me.
How do you know whether you've been successful?
Yeah, well, that is an impossible question. I guess I see it as I put up our mission statement, so it's good timing. Like,
Talk about study.
Okay, we'll talk about that real quick. But I think in our mission statement, of their choice. So each success, and this is kind of like a cliche thing to say, but I believe in it. It's like defined by the person. So if someone's happy, like if a member comes to the Clubhouse, like people have found out that place has been open over 60 years. There's members who have been coming for 40, 50 years. And I thought at first, why, that doesn't seem like success to me. But they're happy. They're doing something meaningful every day. They have friends. They're part of a community that means a lot to them. So to them, I think that's success. Other people, they've come to the Fountain House or BMore for 2 weeks, got a job. Great, woohoo, that's what I want to see. But,
answer your question. There has been an evidence-based study by a lead principal of Johns Hopkins on the efficacy of BMore Clubhouse in terms of its tie-ins to amount of money spent on a person that comes to BMore Clubhouse versus a population that's similar but not at BMore. What does that study produce, Jason?
Well, it hasn't been released yet, so I'm not supposed to really share much. But basically, basically we've come to learn,
journalists.
Yeah, I know, right. What we're doing is the Clubhouse, our Clubhouse, all Clubhouses, I believe, all good Clubhouses are reducing the likelihood. This is just one thing, but an important thing in terms of cost to the local governments, like reducing likelihood of hospitalization. And I think, like I said, that breeds from isolation, I think. So keeping people out of the hospital saves the state a ton of money. So we're trying to finish that study up so we can give it to the state, so we can say, hey, give us some money, please, because we're saving you a ton of money, so that we can do more of this and save you more money. But yeah, right now we're entirely privately funded foundations and individuals. Does that answer your question? And then,
yeah, and I think my question was more along the lines of individual by individual, what does success mean, as opposed to communally, how much money does it save us as a city?
Yeah, individually, I guess it's all different depending on the person.
And that question is easier to answer because it could be a number than what you were trying to get to.
Jason, I don't know if anyone mentioned to you, but I was a little late myself, but this is being recorded and will be on the WIDR website. You can look back at the session.
Yeah, terrific.
And we do appreciate very much you coming.
Yeah, we just breezed through this last couple.
I'm
cut it short, yeah.
We promised to have everybody out of here, but go ahead. if you
But
want.
yeah, well, just so that's our building on the right. We're now at 90s Franklin, and we have a community garden up in Hamden, Baltimore Free Farm, blah blah blah. Okay, and here, so since we're running out of time, please, write down the number. I have some business cards. Our business cards have our old address on it, but
Does everybody
give me
know
a
where
call.
Tio Pepe's is?
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Tio Pepe's. Who knows
Yeah.
where Tio Pepe's is? Raise your hand. BMore Clubhouse, directly across the street from Tio
Okay.
Pepe's.
And we have parking, so please come visit us.
And you have a very
again.
good website too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the
Thank you so
opportunity to
much.
speak
Thank
with you.
you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody not get a brochure?
Second and
Anybody got a brochure?
Yeah, and if you all have any follow-up questions, feel free to call or email me, or I'd be happy to come back again sometime. So.
And for those that were late, we do like to say, wear your orange tomorrow. Or
Thank you.
Thanks
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hey Nathan, Jason, you said stop business cards. Do you need to leave?
Hi everyone, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
My name's Erin Donovan, I'm the Executive Director of HopeSprings, and do you mind if I just take a minute to pack my presentation in?
No,
Is that okay?
please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You over read that?
I wish I could help you.
If you can't, I have my laptop.
Is it better with the lights down, lower? Could you all see it better? That light over there was flickering.
Yeah, it was.
Can you still, film this with the light down?
It's got to be a little higher than that. Yeah, that works.
That flickers.
There you go.
About right
It is
there.
flickering, right? It's not just-
When you get that look, that point right there, that doesn't, gets to the, that,
Everybody's instant head.
Did you get that time too, Susan?
Yeah, he was going to be in place.
The other doesn't.
Somebody's late. Our next speaker, that takes half an hour. How far was? I don't know. He was heading to our place. He was going to the school where he taught karate for me last year. Okay.
you took it.
Not to me.
Oh.
I'm glad you had the opportunity to hear a little bit about mental health today right before me, because it actually is a really great transition into what I'm talking about today, which is HIV. HIV and AIDS in the city of Baltimore. You will hear pieces of mental health, you will hear pieces of isolation, you'll hear pieces of stigma. So I think it's been a really good prep for you today coming in. So as I said, my name is Erin Donovan, and I'm the Executive Director for HopeSprings, and I wanted to start off by giving you just a little bit of an overview about HIV in Baltimore before I talk about what we do, because I really do think that that sets the stage and the context for what we as a community have to do together, where we live, where we work, where we worship in the context of what we do, and where we play. So in the US, 1.2 million Americans are infected with HIV, and about 20% of those don't know that they are infected. This is something that YPR has covered typically around World AIDS Day, and we are so excited and happy for that. The thing is Maryland is actually number 3 in the nation for an HIV diagnosis, and even higher than that for adults living with HIV. And in Baltimore, the Baltimore-Towson region, so the surrounding area, we're number 6 in the nation for an HIV diagnosis. So this is something that we have to talk about. And that is part of the problem. I think there has been much AIDS fatigue, something that you heard about up until maybe mid-2000s, and then we think, oh, we're doing fine with this, so we don't need to discuss it. The reality of the situation, though, if you look at this slide, is about 82% of individuals who are HIV positive have been diagnosed. So there's a disconnect in the continuum of care. About 66% of the 100% that are positive have been linked to care, meaning they've made 2 appointments. We're not doing well. 37%, meaning they've made a series of appointments over a time, have been retained in care. 33%, 1 in 3, are on medication, and only 1 in 4 of our brothers and sisters who are HIV positive are virally suppressed. What that viral suppression means is that the amount of virus in their system is so low that they are 96% less likely to spread the virus. So as we think about HIV and we think about the context of Baltimore, where we have 2 fantastic research organizations, where we have care and clinic everywhere, the reality is in the nation, right, only 1 in 4 people are living well with their HIV. But in Baltimore, in the city where we live, where we work, where we worship, where we play, 1 in 43 people are HIV positive. And 1 in 29 African Americans are HIV positive. And we have 4 zip codes where that number is between 1 in 19 and 1 in 21. And this is something that you rarely hear talked about, maybe once in a year. It affects this zip code, it affects all zip codes around this area. Just to kind of give you an overview of that, this is a map that just shows HIV new diagnoses in Baltimore. There are hot spots in this city, and what I'd like to spend some more time talking about a little bit later is why. Why is that happening? So just as I said, is in the nation, only 1 in 4 people are virally suppressed. It's actually lower than that in Baltimore. Some estimates show as low as 1 in 14% of our brothers and sisters are virally suppressed. Yes?
You may be getting to this, but is that because the treatment is so onerous that people don't want to stay on it?
So treatment has to happen at the exact same time every day, and there are once-a-day pill treatments as well, but there are mental health issues, substance abuse issues, homeless issues, housing issues, etc. And I'm actually going to talk about that in just a minute.
But it's more those issues than lack of access to care.
There is
People want
access, that's right, there is
available,
access to
just
care.
having
And as
access.
a matter of fact, the Affordable Care Act has done some really great things in terms of getting an HIV test. It's now no longer considered a separate test. It'll come as a part of your copay. So for example, for a woman going to the OBGYN, she no longer has to pay separately for an HIV test. It comes along with that, right? But some of the things that we need to think about are, as we look at this full cascade and this full spectrum, what can we do as a community around the linkage to care, around the retention in care, around staying on medication? I'm going to talk a little bit about those. So, HopeSprings is a faith-based organization, and the church, by the former city commissioner Barbeau, is being called to engage in this work of serving our HIV positive brothers and sisters. She said the church is the foundation of bringing communities together, and we actually need the church to help get out the message about HIV and AIDS. So the crazy thing about this is in Baltimore, there are over 1,800 different churches. There is a church on every corner. On my short drive from my office over here, I believe I counted 26. What a voice. What a voice to step up and serve. What a voice for education. What a voice for so many of these issues, including mental health and isolation that happens. And we somehow forget that the role of the faith community used to have a voice in social justice issues. And that is what we do at HopeSprings, so that we may all get to zero. We're actually on the cusp of an AIDS-free generation. If we can move that cascade up, we can be a part, I can be a part of the next generation to see 0 HIV infections, 0 stigma and discrimination, and 0 AIDS-related death. And that's what we are about. And we know that every person has a role to play in this. A brother who was HIV positive said, "I'm one of the multitudes who must be invisible, yet in the midst of illness, rejection, isolation, and probably death, out of darkness, hands reaching out, not family, friends, or lovers, but strangers." It is the role of the faith community and the church to be those hands reaching out and to restore hope and healing. But we as the church have done an awful job in some case, creating stigma and discrimination in not just the area of HIV and AIDS, but pieces like mental health and all of these other issues. So we at HopeSprings work to awaken, equip, and engage the church to serve. How do we do that? Awakening through education, equipping by providing training, and then engaging by building capacity within the HIV experts, utilizing the church, a huge group of volunteers that can be trained and placed within the experts to help them build their capacity. We're training volunteers from the faith community, and we're placing them in the providers. It's a different model than what typically happens at your HIV/AIDS service provider organization. So awake through education, equip through training, and then engage. We have volunteers doing anything from HIV testing and care at the Institute of Human Virology, the Jacques Initiative with the University of Maryland, to working with Movable Feast, which is an HIV meal delivery organization, to working in the area of housing in HIV, and all of our volunteers are coming from within the faith community. So we're a very small staff with a massive reach because there are 1,800 plus churches in Baltimore. People sitting in their pews wondering, how can I be used by God or by the Lord or by whoever I serve? And we say, we'll train you and we'll utilize you with the experts to build their capacity.
How often do you encounter churches that are resistant to your mission?
I would say less likely than what I thought. I think one of the most difficult things that we have in the context of the church is many times leaders expect the pastor to do everything. It's not true. The pastor is the gatekeeper into the community, but every gatekeeper needs a champion, someone that can take on that cause and walk that forward. So we will always work in permission and in conjunction with a pastor, but we say we don't want you to do the work. We want that champion in that community, and then we'll assist the pastor by providing sermons, by providing bulletin announcements, by providing educational pieces of some kind, so that the pastor can do the groundwork that needs to happen. Sometimes people need to hear it from the pulpit first, and then we train the congregants, making their churches more HIV competent, but also then utilizing them in all of these different service providers that we have throughout the city. So we're a pretty popular organization from the service provider standpoint because they come to us for volunteers. So this is just a picture of our amazing volunteers that we have. I do want to go back to this though to talk, because many times when you hear about HIV in the context of the church, you actually hear about it from the testing side. Churches get involved and engaged in HIV testing. And although that is very, very helpful, it is not the only way that churches can serve. It's not. You see, we need to look at the entire continuum of care in order to move forward. We are involved and engaged in actually one of the largest faith-based testing efforts in the city of Baltimore. Through the utilization of volunteers alone in the past 6 years, we have tested over 5,000 people in churches, linking them to care, utilizing volunteers, building up University of Maryland, building up Johns Hopkins, doing work in conjunction with them. But see, as we started to do this work in HIV testing, and that became a big focus of our organization as a way to get the church outside of the four walls, when we first started, what we started seeing are these type of things. That people are coming in maybe for an HIV test, but when you actually look at what they're facing and what other issues they have on top of it, why they can't be retained in care, why they can't be adherent to medication, you see issues of housing, medicine, food, mental health, insurance, employment. And for our brothers and sisters that work hourly wage jobs, that must take off 3 or 4 hours in the day to go to an appointment, they are automatically having to make a decision, can I feed my family or can I treat my HIV? We are set up in a system to maintain poverty and maintain people where they are. So after looking at some of these other issues that people were coming in to see us for, we started thinking, we can affect more than just that HIV piece. We can affect the full continuum of care. We know that education, employment, poverty level, and homelessness are things that are driving HIV. And we as the church, because the church is filled with people, and I say church including mosques, synagogues, everywhere, the faith community is filled with people that have resources sitting in their pews, stuck to the upholstery, and saying, this guy up front is asking me what to do, and I have these gifts, I just don't know how to utilize them. With the new research, it's showing that the poor are more likely to be infected, that poverty and stress are predictors to adherence, and that in areas of poverty, the infection rate is more than double what it is in other areas. And more women are more likely to die of HIV due to poverty-related deaths than men. And I showed you that first map, right, of what HIV looks like in Baltimore. And then we see this, HIV transmission and poverty, and you see that the two go hand in hand.